Welcome back, everybody, to Dist Media, a startup story, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of starting a business from the ground up. And, one of the things I think is really important when we talk about business, and one of the kind of the foundations of what we did when we started Dist Media, is talking about helping people as they transition into different stages of their careers. And one of the things I know from looking at our show demographics and the people who tend to tune into this podcast, the people who tend to respond to our social media posts, is we have a little bit of an older crowd. I would say that we're between 35 and 55 is our sweet spot, so we skew a little bit older. And we also tend to skew a little bit more male than female. And I don't know if that's just because I'm the male personality behind the brand, or we're just doing a lousy job at making sure we're talking about topics that are relevant to women and important to women. And so I'm happy to have on our show today a guest that I hope is going to appeal to our broader demographic that we need to tap into, because female leadership in organizations is a very important thing. And while we are better than we used to be 30 years ago when I started my career,
Sure.
it was not the kind of landscape we see today. We're still not done. We still got work to do. And so we're going to get into a little bit of that today.
Yeah.
And so I welcome today to our podcast, Chanda Coston. Chanda, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. I think a lot of what you said is much needed. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it really is. I remember when I started, I always say that movies and television have a really good way of making sure that they're almost like they're time capsules, if you will,
They are.
because for them to be relevant, for people to connect to movies and television, it has to be something that we see as relatable.
Yeah.
And when we go back to the 1970s and 80s and we look at movies like 9 to 5, for example, where women were just treated horribly in the workplace and in the office, and fast forward to even more current movies and film, still there's a lot of underrepresentation at the executive level, at the C-suite level,
Sure.
and even at the board level of females in business. Again, like I mentioned, I think it's changing, but we certainly have a ways to go. And I know this is a space where you've really focused a lot of energy and effort in helping women and kind of pivot at different points of their career. To get folks listening familiar, share a little bit about your background and where you started and how you got into the work you're doing today.
Absolutely. So, really quickly, I started off in the military and I did 10 years there, and I pivoted into corporate and worked in consulting with the government, and then went back into public service. And then I went back into government contracting, but I did it as an independent contractor or an entrepreneur working for myself. During that time, I experienced a major loss and I started a nonprofit. And that was where I realized that I enjoy teaching, mentoring, and coaching. And so I started to take some programs, and my peers kept asking me to coach them. And so I wanted to kind of explore that. My kids grew up, they're all grown, thank God. And I was like, now is the time. And so I jumped off and, spread my wings in the coaching space. And so now I spend my time helping women 40-ish, right? Around the age of 40, build businesses that are purposeful, but also sustainable, and they fit the season of their life. And so quite the journey, but definitely all worth it. Gave me a lot of tools to put in my toolbox in order to help, us achieve our dreams and our goals. And so excited for that.
It's funny. I think when we're younger,
Mhm.
we're trying to make a name for ourselves, where we're just trying to get paid. Like, we're trying to make a living. And it is, late 30s, early 40s where we start to reflect on the path that we've gone
Mhm.
down and, start to ask some questions about, like, is this fulfilling?
Hmm.
Is the work I'm doing purposeful? Does this even matter? Am I where I want to be?
For
And
sure.
what can I do to be getting further along? Um, I know you've coached a lot of people in this space. If you can share with me, what do you find are common themes as people you work with and coach? What are the kind of things that they come to you with?
Most of my clients come to me and they say they're overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. They don't have enough time. Those that are already working and in their businesses, a lot of them are overwhelmed. They're burnt out, and they're trying to figure out how to recoup more of their capacity so that they can enjoy the freedoms of entrepreneurship instead of creating another business, another job for themselves. And so it really depends on where they are, but the number one theme, of course, is I'm overwhelmed. Like this is a lot. Um, and so it's giving them permission um, to structure their business around their lives and not their lives around their business. For sure.
Gosh, that is such a hard thing. And the reason I say that is yeah, I've worked for companies. I continue to work for companies to this day. I'm not a full entrepreneur in that I'm completely 100% running my own thing.
Hmm.
I have done that. It's a wave of emotions and challenges and
Yeah.
not knowing when you're going to get paid and if you're going to get paid. And anybody who's got 100% of their own thing, it's man, it is not all joy.
No,
It's interesting because even despite the things that I do, I still have this entrepreneurial spirit. And the thing about being an entrepreneur is it is a lot of work.
it is.
It's work that just doesn't seem to go away. And people who are entrepreneurs, I love what Barbara Cochran on Shark Tank says. She's like, entrepreneurs are the only people who will work 80 hours to avoid working 40. And I find that to be very true. Like entrepreneurs tend to be these people who just run all the time to the point of your coaching practice there. It's not sustainable. Like you have to find moments to break away and to your, like you said, give yourself permission to not run on all cylinders or feel that pressure to perform,
Mhm.
right? Um, what are some ways that you advise people to, kind of reflect and think about where they're at?
Um, well, I'm really big on structure, right? And so the structure that I bring as a strategist, it allows me to be a free spirit to do all those lovely things that I just spoke about. And so when my clients come and they say, I'm overwhelmed, first thing, and they say, I don't have enough time, I'm like completely inundated with all the things. And I said, well, let's do a calendar audit. Let's see exactly how you're spending your time. And so it's getting them to take a pause and say, you know what? You're right. I have been wasting time here and there. And so we start to incorporate time management strategies, something as simple as time blocking, task batching, right? Creating theme days as a CEO so that you know what you're focusing on, and then reviewing your calendar at the end of every day or the beginning of every day so you know what you're
Mhm.
facing, and you know if you have shifting priorities because life does happen, right? So with 5 adult children, 4 grandchildren, 2 aging parents, and I still have my own life, things come up all the time, and if I'm abreast of what my schedule looks like for the day, I know what's negotiable as a business owner and what's not negotiable. And so it
Mhm.
is being able to make those honest, realistic decisions in order to, you know, be healthy mentally. So you're not
Yeah,
because
that is
it comes to that when you're burnt out, right? It's like you're running on
yeah,
fumes.
something that strikes me as, I wish they would teach this in school,
Mhm.
money management
Mm.
and time
Yes.
management.
Yes.
Like, it is amazing how well those 2 things correlate, and the fact that, when you think about primary school and just going through, um, junior high and high school and all of that, I can't remember once where we took a time management class or
No.
project management, money
Thank
management, none
you. Absolutely.
Prior to the work that I do today, one of the things I used to do was coach and mentor entrepreneurs and do consulting um, in that world. And something that strikes me, I love working with entrepreneurs because they're so creative and they're so
Yeah.
innovative, and they tend to like to bend the rules and see how far they can take something, and all of that. Just like, I get excited by that kind of approach and attitude. But I find also that many entrepreneurs are very good at the thing that they are good at.
Mm-hmm.
That thing that they are good at is usually um, not money management or project management. And you're kind of laughing like you've
Well,
seen this story
I'm a
before.
PMP, right? And so and that's where the strategy comes into play. If I can get a business owner to do the structure at the foundation level, then all they have to do is build to scale because they get to enjoy the thing that they love. But most people don't sell an entrepreneur on structure. That's not sexy. What? You
Right.
want me to look at a SOP, a process, a workflow, a plan of action? What? So when you come into my program, I coach you based on your limiting beliefs and what you're missing from a personal development perspective. So the number one book I recommend to all of my clients is The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran, because it aligns so well with project management and giving them those time
Yeah.
management strategies. But on the other side, from a strategy perspective, I'm like, you have this really great idea. Let's look at that. Let's see how we can bring that to life. Oh, let's give you a 12-month plan of action and milestones, because then it gives you a list of tasks. It gives you due dates, right? It gives you milestones. And so then it becomes manageable and they get so excited because something goes from idea to actually a whole business that they're running. And it's the best thing ever. So, yes, I agree with you. You're speaking my language.
Well, part of that. So, one of the things, I don't talk about it often on the podcast, but so most of my career has been in supply chain operations and specifically serving sales and marketing teams
I love that.
in that respect. And so, um, being exposed to operations, I
Mhm.
actually have a black belt in Six
Me
Sigma.
too.
I've also gone down the PMBOK route, the
Okay.
PMP route, but I never took the exam. But went through the book and understand all of the core concepts of project management. I was a
Yeah.
project manager for many, many years, and so yeah, this world is very familiar to me. And one of the things I learned really early in my career, really early in project management, is you got to have a system. You got
Yes.
to have a process flow. Um, Everything that happens has to have a place. That when it comes in, you got to have a place. And one of the things I've spoken about, I've given talks about this before, is I believe there are four core in business, and the four core are trust, communication,
Mhm.
processes, and routines. You're like, yeah. So, you can't build trust unless you openly
For
communicate, and
sure.
you can't openly communicate unless you have trust. So, um, you can't go working with a team or in an organization and be guarded in that way. You have to lower your guard. You have
Yeah,
to open up a little bit. You have to be exposed. And that's a little scary for people
it
sometimes.
is.
And then you have to have processes, because processes are the things that enable you to get more done with what you have,
Mhm.
right? So everything coming into your world has to have a place to go. And when it doesn't have a place to go, it creates
Okay.
bottleneck, it creates
Mhm.
backup, it creates stress and frustration and all kinds of anxiety and all kinds of stuff like that. And then the routines is, it's got to be predictable.
It
People have to know
is.
when it's going to happen. And if you don't do those things, you run a bad business, you run a complicated life.
For sure.
It's all of that mess and that nonsense kind of creeps into things.
Yeah.
It's funny because yeah, you with that background, like all of these things is, I think anybody who comes from that world, you're like, yes, this makes sense.
For sure. Now you're speaking my language. I think the only thing I would add to what you said is outcomes. And I think with all of those things, it allows you to have clear outcomes. And so many people, they're like the great idea in the sky. And it's like, okay, but what's the outcome? What's the end result? What does that look like? How does that
Yes.
happen? Right?
What is success? Define success. What does that look like to you?
Exactly. And so, and that's what's so
So
needed.
little 100%, 100%. Now one of the things I was reading your background and, looking at, some of the work that you've done, you mentioned that you've coached and mentored over 100 women,
Yeah.
and it might even be more at
Yeah.
this point,
Yeah.
because sometimes we create these bios and then and then we're like, "Good, we got that done, I'll just keep working now."
Yeah.
So it's probably more than that, I'm sure. Um with the ones that you have coached,
Mm.
it's hard to pick your favorite, right? But and you don't have to share any names or anything like that, but what are some of the more proud accomplishments you have in that space?
Oh, so many. I,
It's hard to pick, I
no,
know.
I love to be, like I said, one of the things I enjoy is watching something become from nothing. They're like not unsure to them being excited to actually seeing them make progress and doing the thing that they initially wasn't even sure about. And there's so many situations in that where they're like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. I've gotten this breakthrough in this area. Or I've met with clients and someone has told them they should go off and do real estate, and I'm like, no, I think you should be a consultant because you have all this knowledge. And people often don't see their lived experience as human capital. And I'm like, when you get to a certain age in our demographic, right? It's like all of that stuff counts. And so clients being able to pivot successfully into one area or another and have these major breakthroughs, and they're actually building lives like it's like the thing that they say they want. That is amazing for me because they initially start off and they're like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know how to do that. Like I have all this stuff in my head. I'm like, just put it down on paper. Let's dump. Um, so many of them. I had a client text me last week. We had a session and I she got her plan of action a few days before, and within 2 days she'd already done 2 weeks of work, where before she had been stuck for 4 months. Like that matters when you have someone who's stuck. So you sit with them and you're like, well, what is the problem? And like, well, I really don't know. Well, let's talk about it. Let's see what that looks like. And they basically pour out their heart and we lay all the pieces out. And I was like, okay, well, what do you think is the most important thing right now? And I was like, well, I don't know. It's like, well, let's talk about it. And it's helping them get that clarity, because when clarity comes, then it makes it so much easier to execute. And so they get clear. We come up with different courses of actions, and then they're like, this makes the most sense. And then we come up with a plan of action. And then they get excited and they actually go off and start building out the thing that they said they wanted to do. Where before they were just like totally like, I'm so stuck, I'm overwhelmed, I don't know. But it's so many stories of the same exact like process.
Yeah, building a
Yeah,
framework around your
right.
activities.
It's right.
Yeah.
It's so giving them the ability to do that is like the best. Um, so I do love that.
As you talk about that, one of the things I was thinking about is there's a really good book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow.
Mhm.
And we kind of talk about, these heuristics we have,
Mm,
these ways of training ourselves to, our brains are always looking for efficiency. They're always looking for doing things quickly
mm,
they don't like to think for they don't like to think or work too hard for too long. And what's interesting about this is that I think when you're younger in your career, you tend to get rewarded by how quickly you can get things done
mm,
and how how much you're able to complete a task, how quickly you're able to complete a task is usually what gets you promoted.
mm,
And as you get promoted, you get into higher levels of responsibility. And a lot of times people have a challenge transitioning from, I used to be rewarded for what I got done. Now I get rewarded for how I think.
mm.
and how I make decisions, and how am I making the best decisions. And when you get used to, when you get primed into this, I got to make decisions quickly, that doesn't always work the higher up you go. You have to have more thoughtful decisions than quick
For sure.
decisions. and and sometimes quick decisions are not the best strategy for what you're trying to accomplish. And it just kind of strikes me that I think, as we get into these patterns of doing things, sometimes we probably get locked into that mode of quick decisions are the best decisions. Not always so. Sometimes,
Yeah.
sure, but when you're trying to build a business, when you're trying to create strategy, when you're really trying to solve a big problem, being quick about it is not always necessarily the best answer.
Mm.
So I'm going to ask now on the opposite side of that, thinking about the many people that you've encountered, what have you seen as some of the biggest challenges where and I know I haven't known you for very long, but I know you're not the kind of person who's going to give up. So, but where do you find it really challenging when people want to get better, but they have maybe these blocks that are preventing that from happening? Like where does it become challenging for you to work with folks?
Um, I have told more than one client that I'm not a therapist and that I recommend they get a therapist. And this could be some of the military part of me and my early days of kind of like, let's go, let's get it done. And I have empathy when they come to me and they're struggling, right? One of the things they get from me is a 50-question survey, and that assesses limiting beliefs, their business knowledge, where they are in their business, etc., so that I can support them in that. But if every time we meet, you want to, you just want to lay on the couch and have me listen to all of your qualms, I'll say, I don't know if I'm the coach for you. You may want to go get you a therapist because I'm not qualified to help you in that way. And so I think that's where I struggle. And like I said, I've said it more than once, but the reason I say that is I'm here to help you win, but I can't do it without you. I can give you a strategy, but if you're not going to do the work to shift your mindset, then it's not going to shift. And so I make it very plain to my clients. You have to make your goals non-negotiable. Nobody else is going to do the work for you. I had one client tell me that she wished that someone could pick her up and put her at the end. And I said, you and me both. If success was so simple, we'd all have somebody
Yeah.
pick us up and put us at the end, right? But the reality is there's work to be done. And that's the importance of community. That's the importance of accountability. That's the importance of support. And so I tell everybody, you don't have to be with me because I understand you have to resonate with people, right? So I'm not for everybody. I know that. But if you are with me, we're going to get things done because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you win. But you have to have that tenacity to want to win. And if you recognize, and a lot of times they recognize that they do have limiting beliefs, but they're not in a place where they want to do the work to get past that. And so I'll give you some tools. I give you some affirmations. The first time, I'm gonna sit there and be very empathetic. The second time, I'm gonna say, okay, what are we doing about that? Because I'm here as a coach, and a coach, I think people have made coaches sound like something very sweet. And if you think about an NFL coach, or you think about an Olympics coach, right? Or you look, coaches do what? They cheer you on to win, and sometimes they have to push you a little harder because they want to see you get results. And so, what does that look like? Um,
Yeah, as you say that, and I have a few friends who are in this coaching space. We talk about that sometimes. A coach isn't a therapist.
for sure,
Very two completely different skill
for
sets.
sure.
needed. And you don't want your coach to be your therapist, by the way. It's
No.
would be, just not in the right field of expertise. But what coaches, regardless of where they are applied,
Hmm.
what a coach is valuable for is identifying talent and sussing out where you can apply and leverage that talent to win, right? To achieve
For
things.
sure.
I think that's what good coaches do. And it sounds like when you go through your assessments, like,
Yeah.
some people might hear like 50 questions. Oh my God, what am I going to, what is that going to do? Well, it's your way of assessing. Like you're trying to get a read on what are you good at? How do you feel? How do you think about things? How do you process stuff? Do you have any routines? Like
Yeah.
all of that stuff is really important to developing a plan.
For sure.
So when one of the things too that I noticed is that you've done a couple things, right? You started out in the military and
Yeah.
ended up an entrepreneur. um, so when you think about that journey for yourself, like what do you think, reflecting back on all the things that you've done, like what are some of the things that have kind of um, added the most value to what you bring today to help people out?
I think it all counts. And that's when I talk to my clients about human capital. Military definitely helped me understand, like in the military, emotions don't matter. It's really about getting it done, showing up, being a team player. In corporate, it was about, position and authority and management and structure. Um, Even in my loss, I lost my brother to gun violence and I started a nonprofit. And it was in that space while I was healing that I learned to serve, but I also found my passion. I think in all of that, as an entrepreneur, you have to learn that it takes all of that to be a good leader, but it also takes all of that in order to show up as your best self for your business, like you would show up for an employer. As a coach, it lends as lived experience. Like I can leave breadcrumbs for the person that's coming behind me. And so, you know, I don't think we go through anything by chance. I think everything that we go through and we live and we make it to the other side, it becomes experience. It becomes value added. It becomes um, a tool. So for sure.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of people who come to you, one of the biggest challenges we have is burnout.
Mm,
Um, it just, gosh, it's one of those things that just permeates a lot of people. Um, because we're all doing too much. you know, I say that as before we got started here, I was telling you, the things that I do, and I don't know. Again, I think anybody who's in this entrepreneurial creative space, I don't think
yeah,
anybody looks at themselves as having just one job. We all wear a lot of
you
hats.
do.
We all do a lot of different things. Um, what are some strategies that you use to kind of manage and mitigate
Mhm.
burnout?
Um, I mentioned a few of them earlier, but I am big on self care. I think we have gotten away from somebody told us that we needed to hustle and we just never stopped. And so we got in the mindset like we always had to be chasing something, doing something. And um at at my age, I'll say at my age, I don't want to hustle. I want to relax. And so I structure my life to be lived with a sense of peace. And the biggest part of that is giving yourself permission. So, CEO theme days, Mondays, typically personal development. And I'm focusing on pouring into myself. Tuesday through Thursday, I run my business, work on my business and my business, my clients, as well as other things. So, everything has a day. I might be doing finances, content, marketing and sales, everything has a day, and a time block, right? And Fridays, self-care days. I do whatever I want to do on Fridays because I deserve it. Okay. Saturdays, I either family, something around the house, or I'm serving in my nonprofit. Sundays are my reset days. So on Sundays, I'm looking back to see what I got done because you have to measure it. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And then I'm looking forward to see what's on my plate. Can I handle it? Do I need to move it? What's the priority? And so that helps immensely when you know what to expect, but you also know what you're managing and what you have capacity for. And so it works perfectly for me. Burnout, if I'm having a bad day, I'm looking to see what's urgent. Can I like take the day off or do I need to get this thing done because it is urgent? It's going to affect my bottom line or, it's going to affect a client. Otherwise, I'm an entrepreneur for a reason. I enjoy all the freedoms. I'm taking off and I'll get it done tomorrow, right? But that's doing it responsibly and not every day. Not every day. Um,
Yeah.
but it's really having the understanding of we all got the same 24 hours and we need to be mindful of how we manage that. So being mindful of your time, being mindful of your calendar, putting those different strategies in place, like the time blocking, meaning I tend to do better with a 1 hour block of time. And instead of working a full hour, I'm working 45 to 50 minutes and I'm getting up 10 and 15 minutes. I'm stretching my legs. I'm getting some water. I'm getting a snack. I'm letting the dog out, like any of those things. I'm checking social media, anything except what I was just working on. And then when I come back to my desk for the next block, whether I resume that task or do something else, I'm sitting down and I'm fresh. I'm refreshed. Um, because it does help when you get up at the end of the day that you have not been sitting there for 10 straight hours and your brain is wired, right? That you've taken that moment to kind of relax a little bit and breathe. It does help. And so I think it's really important to give yourself permission more than anything.
Yeah, I think it is important to make sure that that you understand and you kind of listen to yourself and the
Yeah.
way that you work. And I'm going to go a step further and say that I think for leadership and management, we have to be a little bit more mindful of the way that everybody works and processes things,
For sure.
because I think the structures we work within can oftentimes kind of shape how we emotionally respond to that stuff. So here's where I'm going with, as I raise all of this. So I happen to be the kind of person that I just am constant. I'm doing stuff like all
Mm,
the time. And by the way, I'm not saying this because I think that people, I don't expect, nor do I measure anybody by what I do.
mm,
I know that I probably do things that other people wouldn't care to do,
yeah.
right? Because it's just not a fit for them. It's just not the way that they like to work. Um, but you mentioned like, hey, I don't want to be there for 10 hours. Like, I can tell you, I've sat for several hours at a time working on something, but that's what works for me,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
But that doesn't mean that I got to go expect everybody else around me to be just like that. And I think that's kind of the important thing as leaders and as people in the workplace. I think we should have the goal and then set the expectation for meeting the goal and create the deadline and say, this is when we need it done. And then, okay, break. You go do it however you think you're going to get there. We're going to have a couple check-ins along the way. But look, if you need to take half a day, full day on Monday because it's there are things that you've got to work on, that you got to balance, you got to create the right system and environment for you to come in and knock it out later. Like, I think as managers, we have to allow people to kind of work in their environment to do that stuff. Now, realistically, can every job be that way? No.
Mm,
Unfortunately not. There are jobs, if you're a first responder, you can't just be
for
like,
sure.
sorry folks, I'm not going to go answer this call today because I'm just not in the right headspace. There are jobs where unfortunately that is not the option, but I think anytime that we can try and work that into our lives, the better outcomes we can create.
For sure. I think it's really important to have realistic expectations, not just for yourself, but for your staff. So when you do get a team, it's about creating a culture that you're comfortable with as an owner, but also that would support your staff or your team. to make sure you guys are on the same page because again, everybody is different. Um, Statistically speaking, from a time management perspective, like different people do have different capacities for different things. So whereas
Mhm.
I prefer an hour time block, you prefer 3 to 4 hour time block. The average, what they actually recommend is only a 30-minute time block. Working
Yeah.
20 to 25 minutes and then taking that 5 to 10 minute break, that does not do it for me. So I make mine an hour, right? And it's allowing people to be autonomous to do that, to know what works for them. I
Yes.
think in the organizations who are structured like that, they do tend to do better. And you do find that in the larger corporations, right? Where they have a lot more freedom. Um, Not everywhere, but they're not there
Yeah,
yet.
it's not everywhere, but anytime you have, more autonomy, right?
Mhm.
More decisions about how you do things and what you get done. And, it's funny, I was sharing with my colleagues when I finished my book, is literally just not too long ago. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll been a little bit, but, um not too long. Just saying, like, not like last week. But when I was sharing with my colleagues, one of them was like, "How do you have time for this?" And I'm like, you make the time for the things that are
For
important to you.
sure. Mm.
And quite honestly, I enjoy everything that I do. I don't look at what I do as work. I don't like sit there and go, "Oh my god, I'm so glad it's Friday because I get the weekend." Like I don't sometimes I don't even know what day it is. Sometimes I'm like, if there's a holiday on a Monday and like I'm like, "Oh, that's right. It's Tuesday already." Like I just work. I don't really count the days. I don't really count the hours. I just enjoy what I'm doing.
For sure.
Yeah, it can be a headache sometimes, but most of the time it's pretty fun. I really try and encourage people, like, tap into that.
For
Like,
sure.
find the joy in the stuff that you're doing because it doesn't feel like work when you enjoy the stuff what you're doing. Even the stuff that's a pain in the neck can be joyful at some point.
Yeah, and I think you have a point there. I think that's the whole key of identifying a purposeful business, right? Because if you enjoy it and you like what you do, you like the process and all the things that it entail and how you help people, how you show up, I think then it doesn't become work. It's like, okay, I'm just living my life. I'm doing the thing that I enjoy. Um, and I mean, you get to a point where you're so good at it, you just outsource the stuff that you don't, that's required for a business. And that's when you're really, like, living a golden life, I think,
Yeah.
right? Um, so, yeah, I think that is so key.
I wanna switch gears for a second because something that you mentioned was your nonprofit organization,
Mhm.
and it sounds like this, was something that developed from a really kind of tragic event that happened in your life. Would you mind sharing a little bit about the nonprofit, its mission, and, kinda what you're focused on?
Sure, absolutely. I lost my brother in 2018 to gun violence. He was only 27 years old, and
I'm
very
sorry to hear that, by the
thank
way.
you. It's very unfortunate, and it jarred me. I literally had just went to do government contracting, and I was going to build this amazing consulting firm, and I did. I built it enough to pay my bills, but it pivoted me into nonprofit space in order to serve in the community where he lost his life. And it was in that place. We service families most likely to be affected by gun violence or who have been affected by gun violence, and so we do different programs throughout the year, serve the homeless, socioeconomically challenged communities, children, material relief, seasonal relief. We've had mentorship programs for 18 to 24-year-olds. We've had camp healings, which is geared towards children in those communities in order to give them access to play, uh, therapy through play and art, and things like that during the summertime. And so, it was a, blessing that I was able to start it because it was in that space where I was able to heal as well. And so not a blessing I lost my little brother, of course. But when you endure something so tragic and impactful, it makes you look at yourself. So it was during that space where I had to look at myself and say, even if I'm what the world considers to be a success, Am I pleased with who I am, who I'm becoming, and where I'm going? And have I made the best impact that I could have made? What would my legacy speak if it was to speak for me? And it was that journey that brought me into coaching for sure.
Man, that is that is a pretty a pretty cool story. I'm sorry to hear about your brother. Would you mind sharing the name of the organization in case
Sure.
anybody is interested?
His name was Rakib Ishmael Brooks. His friends called him Hebe, and so we took what they called him as a nickname, and we created the HEB Foundation, Healing, Evolving, and Building Community One Person or Family at a Time. It is serving the Hampton Roads of Virginia area. He lost his life in Newport News, Virginia. Um, and so we focus primarily on Newport News, but we do serve the whole Hampton Roads area. So the HEB Foundation, Inc. And the website is thehebfoundation.org. O-R-G.
Thank you for sharing that. It's important to work with community and help. And I love the fact that you're on this mission, to help others.
For sure.
It sounds like you not only get to do it in the nonprofit work that you do with the foundation, but also in the, we'll call it the for-profit work
Yeah.
on the other side. When I think about even, my own career, so much of our time gets spent on trying to perform, trying to outshine,
Yeah.
trying to, get to that next level, whatever that next level is. And something I used to talk about this when I taught. You start out thinking, especially when you're young in your career, if I could only get to this
Yeah.
level, then oh my God, things are going to be so much easier.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, I could do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh man, it would be so much easier if I could just do this. And it seems like every time you get to that
For
next
sure.
level, every time you hit that new um, milestone in your salary, whatever it is in
The
your
next
job
thing.
title,
Yeah.
oh my God, there's just one more thing. And it's always just one more thing. Um, it's a benefit and a curse. I think that it's good to have goals.
Mm,
It's good to have things that you want to accomplish. It's good that you have things that you want to build. Um, where it becomes, I think, a problem is when it just consumes your
mm,
being,
for sure.
when it changes how you treat the people around you. And I don't know, I'm going to speak for myself and say certainly guilty of that. but I love the fact that you're helping people find a better way,
That's right.
to manage all that stuff.
Yeah.
So important. So let me ask you this. What is next on your horizon? What are some of the things that you're really excited about working on, and what are you doing?
Um, s- it's interesting how you preface it with that comment before you started because I tell people all the time, I live by what say. So, a planner by nature as a PNP. I plan to do big things, continue to help more people, right? But I also give myself permission to change, evolve, and if I decide in 3 to 5 years that I want to go a different direction, then I'll
You
do
can do
that,
that.
right? With the way the world is
Absolutely.
going, I am looking. I travel a lot. I like to travel. I'm really big on family. And so, whereas today I'm willing to share my life and my space with people on nonprofit and for profit, I may change my mind and just, skip across the world. I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
a lot of things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, like, when I meet someone new and they're like, "So what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, how much time do you got?" So I do a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I do a lot, but I will say there are certainly times there have been days when I'm like, "Man, I envy the people who just have one thing to do." I
I
envy
can
the people who
imagine.
envy the people who just have, like, one thing to focus on, and like that is their thing. But I also envy people who live in the same town their whole lives. Like
Really?
Yeah, I've moved around, not a whole lot, but I've lived in California, live in Atlanta currently. I've never really I have a hometown that I'm from and a lot of my family's from, but I've never really felt like this is like my space, my home, my community. I've just kind of like, yeah, I live in this house in this place. Like
No, I get it.
so I envy people who like grew up in like my friends from my hometown in California. Like I still have friends, their kids go to the same school they went to. They know the people in the community. They've been in the community forever. They go to the same restaurants and hang
Oh,
out with the same
wow.
people. And there's something to that. But yeah, I think that's really cool when you have stuff like that. I think it's funny because like my friends on Facebook, I still have friends on Facebook from grade school.
Oh, wow.
And that's something that I don't think a lot of people have. So in that way, that's my way of connecting to the people I
Yeah.
grew up with. But yeah, there's no rule book, right?
Yeah,
you know.
there's no rules. It's
Chanda, let's talk about how people find you. Where do we get in touch? Where do we find you? How do we tap into some of your wonderful wisdom to help us get through things?
You can find me on my website, chanda-co.com. And my social media is chanda2_co. And I would love to uh, meet you guys and get to know you.
Chanda, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights. I think it's really valuable, and it certainly encourage anybody who's looking for a coach, not a therapist, but a coach, to find that, because I think coaches are really beneficial to helping people, develop. And I kid you not, I didn't. This is going to be a shameless. This is going to be a dual plug. All right, Chanda, definitely coach. But I kid you not, first chapter in my book is about coaching and the value that it brings. So I think it just ties in really well to a lot of things, such that I put it as the first chapter in my book. I really do think it's an important thing that helps business professionals develop systems and develop ways of getting things done.
For
So
sure.
um, love the fact, and I love your background, by the way. I feel like, we're kindred spirits here in this operational project world.
For sure.
Everybody, thank you all for tuning in, checking out Dis Media, a startup story. If you don't mind, share with your friends, your family, your loved ones, and even people you don't like, because our goal, our mission is to hit 100,000 subs by the end of 2026. And, we are on our way.
For sure.
We're getting there. So I'm hesitant to say the path we've crossed so far, because when we publish this, we're going to be further along. But as of today, we're at 7,000 and growing at about 800 to 900 people a week. So jump on the train, join the YouTube channel, give us a support. We love that. Chanda, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate having you on. And if you have something in the future you want to promote, want to connect again, by all means, feel free to reach out and let me know.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me. It's been great.
Thank you. And for everybody else, thank you. And we'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to Dis Media, a startup story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of Dis Media Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@dismedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes, or information about our guests, by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.